I would embody this masculine, aggressive energy, and I would exude it through my body language. And it would solve nothing. I want to step into being more feminine. And I was like, I cannot make that video until we address this first. A masculine energy's coming out, baby. I'm a brawl a man in the streets. Let's talk about the whole outburst of feminine energy, stepping into your feminine, how to become more feminine, how to live out your feminine, how to be your best feminine self. Today we're going to talk about it because this girl is not in her feminine, does not obtain feminine energy, and I want to be there. But today I'm going to explain to you why I'm not, and if you're struggling with it, why you probably aren't either. Okay. So I just kind of wanted to start from the beginning. When I started doing some research on stepping into your feminine, and before you get married, you should step into your feminine energy, keep yourself kept, and kind of some of these are just like grooming habits, I would say. Like some of them I'm like, girl, that's hygiene, baby. Like, is that feminine energy or is that just being like groomed? I was hearing all these things and I was like, I feel like a lot of the outward things I already obtain, or if I don't already obtain them, they're very obtainable. But it was the inward. It was the feminine energy side. I know like we say feminine energy and then we talk about the physical and we talk about like the inner characteristics. I was struggling with the inner characteristics, and I'm going to explain to you today what I realized was holding me back and what I realized was making me unable to step into my feminine. So just recently, I've discovered masculinity has been a point of protection for me for the majority of my life. Since I was a little girl, I've used masculine energy and I have used aggression as a protectant. I was really thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking about how, for me, masculinity has been a cover for my traumas. Masculinity has been a front for the walls that I have put up. Like, not only do I have walls, but in front of those walls, I have this front of masculinity and this heavy masculine energy. And it's not that it's because I want to come across that way. I don't want to come across aggressive. I don't want to come across in a very masculine way or obtain a masculine vibe. I don't want that, but from a young age, I learned that I had to have it if I wanted to protect myself. Or so that's what I thought I needed to protect myself. I think for a very long time, I covered my vulnerability with masculinity. And the reason for this was, I think when I was a child, I had to grow up pretty quick. I think I had to learn from a very young age to be independent. And I also noticed that some other things that I kind of obtain is like a caretaker mentality. And I think that it carried over completely into my adult life, and it molded me and grew me into the woman I am today. And it has caused me issues today in being soft and kind. Not that I'm not kind. I can be very kind. I am very loving, but there's a difference, right? Like there's women that are very kind and loving all the time. They just always possess this like loving, soft life, like the soft life. They just always have it. It's just how they carry themselves. They're dainty. They carry themselves with an eloquency, right? And this is not to put down women that are like me or women that live in this more masculine era. It is not to put down anybody like that. It's just to bring awareness. If you're trying to step into your feminine and you're like, there's this blockade and I don't understand why. For me, this is why. And I'm sure for a lot of other girls that probably grew up like I did, it's why. So I had this sense of having to be independent and kind of taking care of myself and taking care of others around me. Not that like my parents took great care of me, they loved me, but there was just things that when you're out working and trying to provide for your kids, you can't be in the home and like constantly raising your kids. So your kids have to kind of learn how to be on your own. If you have a child that has parents that have addiction issues, and as a little girl, you're making sure that your siblings are okay, and you're tucking your dad into bed, or you see your dad falling asleep on the couch and you're covering him with a blanket as a child, or even as a teenager, or even as a young adult, that is going to mold how you are. And when you have to care for others like that, I think sometimes you lose yourself. I was always kind of labeled like, oh, she's feisty. And I just thought like, oh, like I'm just feisty. No, I was living in this lifestyle of being masculine, but being masculine to protect myself. And I think about a lot of situations, like a lot of these single moms that are labeled as hard or cold or aggressive. I feel like that's not what it is. That's not who they really are. And it's maybe not even who they really want to be. It's who they had to be. It's who they had to be to survive. And when you're constantly in a state of survival mode, your husband leaves you, your husband becomes an addict, your husband cheats on you and goes and has a whole nother family. You are now in this position of, I have to financially care for my children, I have to emotionally care for my children, I have to be mom and dad for my children. And you're in this constant survival mode, let alone dealing with the grief of a man rejecting you, a man leaving you, a man wanting to divorce you, whatever the situation was. And now you have all these other children that you have to deal with their grief, and you have to deal with their mourning, and you have to take care of them. And so think about how hard it is to be soft and vulnerable in a time like that. And when you are put in a position so many times in your life where you have to care for yourself, and you have to provide, and you have to have that provider mentality for yourself, and you have to be everything that you need a dad to maybe be, of course you're going to be masculine. Of course you're going to have masculine energy. Duh. Like, I haven't met a lot of girls who have severe daddy issues and they're like super soft and dainty, and a lot of them have aggression. A lot of us are labeled crazy. And what's sad is because we've been put in the position where we've had to do that to survive. And I wanted to make this video because I know a lot of girls are out there, and this new, I don't want to call it a trend, because I genuinely don't think that it's necessarily a trend. I think that it is a really good thing, and I think I like that it's cycling around and it's becoming a thing. And I was even thinking about making a video about how to step into your femininity when you've struggled with masculinity all your life, but I needed to do this one first. We need to discuss first, why are we stuck in our masculinity? And a lot of people are stuck in this masculinity because of how they were raised, or because of the circumstances they were put in, and you're put in this survival mode. It's hard to operate as a soft and delicate person constantly, and then also have to be a provider in the workforce, and you have to fend off men, or a lot of women that are taken advantage of. That masculine energy is going to step in and become forefront of your personality, because it's going to become a protectant for you. And I don't think that we should put women down for that. I think we should bring awareness to why some women are stuck in not being able to step into their femininity, and shed light on the situation that a lot of us are coming out of survival mode. And you could be 27 years old and coming out of survival mode. You could be 37. You could be 44. I don't care. You could be 20. And I think for me personally, I struggled so long in relationships. I remember in my first relationship with my first boyfriend, I never really knew when we got into fights how to express how I felt. I had this underlying belief that being vulnerable was weak. So to mask that in my relationship, instead of me saying, hey, this really hurt my feelings when you said this, this really hurt my feelings or upset me when I wanted you to do this and you didn't, or I wanted you to do this but I had to ask for it. And then I would feel embarrassed. Like, I know there was a lot of times that I would be like, for example, I would be sitting in the car and I'd be like, why is this man not holding my hand? Like, do I have to ask? Do I have to ask for you to hold my hand? And am I a little crazy? Yeah, probably I am a little crazy. Instead of just being like, hey, I feel like you're not always as affectionate with me, and I don't know if there's like a reason behind that, or if your love language is maybe different than mine, or my love language is maybe different than yours. But when you are not affectionate, physically affectionate with me, even like small things like holding my hand or reaching out for me, it makes me feel like this. It makes me feel like you don't really want to be around me. It makes me feel like you don't want to do those things, even if that's necessarily not the truth. Instead of saying that, I would completely alter my body language. I remember if we were in the car, I would like turn. If I was in the passenger princess, I would literally turn my legs away from him. I wouldn't look at him. I would be so upset. Or if he said something that bothered me, whatever the case may have been that he upset me, I wouldn't say, it bothers me that you did this. It hurt my feelings when you did that, because to me, that was weak. So I would embody this masculine, aggressive energy, and I would exude it through my body language. And it would solve nothing. What did that solve? Nothing. If anything, it grew us further and further apart, because he would think, I have no idea what I did wrong. I keep asking her if she's okay. I keep asking her if I did anything. And she says, no, I'm fine. No, I'm fine. But all of her body language, all of her vibe that she's giving off is livid. And I had this problem in friendships. When I had this one friend, and I always admired this about her. She had this innate ability to express how she felt. She was able to lay out vulnerability, talk about being in your femininity, talk about living soft life. She just had this way of speaking how she felt and how her feelings were. And I admired it about her. And then when we would get into like any sort of verbal altercation, I would go back. She would tell me how she felt, and I would be like, it's not a big deal. It's fine. Like, I wouldn't be able to just say how I felt. And she literally opened the door for that, because that's how she would treat me. That's how she would explain when she was upset to me. And I couldn't accept it, because I had this preconceived notion that sharing your feelings is weak. And I would put on this front, and it would get me nowhere, you guys. It would get me nowhere. So if you are the type of girl that masculinity has become a point of protection for you, and it has become a cover for your trauma, it has become a front for the walls that you have put up, I want you to join me, because I want to make another video about how girls like us can step in to a softer, more feminine life. And again, there's a balance of having masculine and feminine energy. There are times, if you're a mother and you're out with your children and an attacker approaches you, a masculine energy's coming out, baby. I'm a brawl a man in the streets. Got the wrong one messing with me and my babies. But when there's a moment when you're out with your husband and maybe someone approaches and says something wrong to you, or maybe someone flirts with you and gets disrespectful and your husband's there, I feel like that's a situation, like, let your husband, if your husband actually is a rider and he's going to protect you, he's going to step in front of you and he's going to address the situation like, nah, we're not going to do that. You're not going to talk to my wife like that. I saw this video the other day of this girl, and she looked so sad, and she said, I'm letting go of my masculinity, and it's very hard for me because I'm saying goodbye to a part of myself that was a part of me since I was a little girl. And I think a lot of times, like, when we think about our inner child, like, think about little boy or little girl you. When you were a child and you were hurt, you learned from a young age, I have to protect myself and I have to protect myself in this way. And for females, a lot of the time, it's by being masculine, unfortunately. Especially if you're taken advantage of or if you're abused, you have to put on this hard masculine exterior to protect yourself. And then we have people out here saying, like, women aren't soft anymore, women aren't feminine anymore. Okay, well, you're talking to probably a generation of females that have been let down by their fathers. Maybe you're talking to a woman who was abused as a child. Maybe you're talking to a woman who had no dad at all in her life. And her mom was a single mom and did everything she could, and she had to be both mom and dad. She had to play both masculine and feminine. And more so usually in those situations, predominantly masculine. Because you're out here in the workforce, you're out here trying to fend for your kids and yourself by yourself. It's hard to do that while being super soft and feminine, isn't it? I just wanted to make this video to say to a lot of these girls that it's okay if this is where you're at, because this is where I'm at, and it's something that I'm trying to work through. And like I said, again, I really do feel like it's a balance. And now that we're at this age and we're like, this is not helping me further myself in a lot of situations. This is not helping me be the woman that I want to be, being constantly aggressive. And I'm talking about girls that struggle with like this aggressive, full-blown masculinity. Like they're more masculine than they are feminine. And I understand why they are, because I am. I understand. And it's hard because you have to grieve for years. That's all you knew. That's all you knew, was to stand up for yourself in that way, to have aggression be your front. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to share that. It was just on my heart. It's something that I am literally currently going through, because I want to step into being more feminine. And I was like, I cannot make that video until we address this first. Thank you guys so much for watching. If this video was of any help to you, or there was anything that like resonated with you or rang true for you, please comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts.